Jonah was a prophet of God, chosen to deliver his message to the people. Yet when God commanded him to go to Nineveh and warn the city of impending judgment due to their wickedness, Jonah refused. Instead of obeying, he attempted to escape God's call by fleeing to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for Tarshish, a distant land far from Nineveh. As the ship set sail, Jonah may have felt relief, believing he had successfully evaded his divine mission, but God had other plans. A mighty storm arose, rocking the ship violently and striking fear into the hearts of the sailors, who cried out to their gods for deliverance. The storm showed no signs of ceasing, and in desperation, the crew cast lots to determine who was responsible for their misfortune, and the lot fell upon Jonah. Confronted by the sailors, Jonah admitted that he was running from the one true God, the creator of the heavens and the earth, and that the storm was a result of his disobedience. The frightened sailors, realizing the gravity of the situation, asked Jonah what they should do to calm the sea, and Jonah, knowing he was the cause, told them to throw him overboard. At first, the sailors hesitated, unwilling to take an innocent man's life, and they rowed with all their strength in an attempt to reach land, but the storm only grew fiercer. Finally, seeing no other choice, they prayed for mercy and cast Jonah into the raging waters, and immediately the sea grew calm. The sailors, witnessing this miraculous event, were filled with awe and reverence for the Lord, offering sacrifices and making vows to serve him. Meanwhile, Jonah sank beneath the waves, believing his life was over. But instead of drowning, he was swallowed by a great fish that God had prepared. Inside the dark, suffocating belly of the fish, Jonah remained for 3 days and 3 nights, reflecting on his choices and crying out to God in desperation. In his prayer, he acknowledged that he had been cast into the deep, surrounded by waves and engulfed by the sea. Yet even in his distress, he turned his heart back to God, recognizing that salvation belongs to the Lord alone. Hearing Jonah's repentance, God commanded the fish to vomit him onto dry land, giving him a second chance to fulfill his mission. This time, Jonah obeyed and traveled to Nineveh, a vast city so large it took 3 days to walk through it. As he moved through the streets, he proclaimed the message God had given him. In 40 days, Nineveh will be overthrown. To Jonah's amazement, the people of Nineveh immediately believed his words, and instead of dismissing him, they repented with sincere hearts. From the lowest commoner to the highest noble, the people fasted, wore sackcloth, and cried out to God for mercy. When word reached the king of Nineveh, he too humbled himself, removing his royal robes, covering himself in sackcloth, and issuing a decree that not even the animals should eat or drink as a sign of total repentance. He urged his people to turn away from their evil ways, hoping that God would relent and spare them from destruction. Seeing their sincere transformation, God had compassion on Nineveh and decided not to bring the judgment he had threatened, showing mercy instead of wrath. However, rather than rejoicing over their salvation, Jonah was deeply displeased. He became angry and complained to God, saying that this was exactly why he had run away in the first place, because he knew that God was gracious, compassionate, slow to anger, and abounding in love, willing to forgive even the worst sinners. In his frustration, Jonah wished for death, feeling that life was no longer worth living if God would spare the wicked. Leaving the city, he sat outside watching and waiting, perhaps hoping that Nineveh would still face destruction. As he sat in the scorching heat, God caused a leafy plant to grow over him, providing shade and bringing him relief, which made Jonah very happy. But the next morning, God sent a worm to eat the plant, and it withered away, leaving Jonah exposed to the relentless sun and harsh winds. Overcome with heat and exhaustion, Jonah again wished for death, lamenting the loss of the plant. Then God spoke to him, asking, "Do you have a right to be angry about the plant?" Jonah stubbornly replied, "Yes, I do, and I'm angry enough to die." God then used the plant as an illustration, pointing out Jonah's misplaced priorities. Jonah had cared deeply for a plant that he had not planted or nurtured, yet he was angry that God had spared an entire city of more than 120,000 people, along with their animals. With this lesson, Jonah was forced to confront his own lack of compassion, as God revealed his boundless love and mercy for all people, even those whom Jonah saw as unworthy. The story of Jonah ends abruptly, leaving readers to reflect on the depth of God's grace and the importance of aligning our hearts with His will. Through Jonah's journey, from disobedience to repentance, from resentment to reluctant obedience, God's sovereignty and mercy are powerfully demonstrated, reminding us that no one is beyond redemption and that God's love is for all, even those we may deem unworthy.